With Dawson Pendergrass out for the year, it's time for the Baylor Bears to introduce the college football world to the next Cam Skattebo. And he's only a freshman.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello there, Bears fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor, brought to you by Game Time and part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your host, Cam Stuart of ESPN Central Texas and the Cam Show on YouTube. Appreciate you guys making this your first listen today and every day. Today, we are looking still at the Dawson Pendergrass injury, but rather not what that means for Baylor, but who is going to replace him on the field this year. And the answer might just surprise you. And we've got a new top 25 poll out, the AP poll, the one that everybody cares about. And once again, if you read in between the lines, they're going to tell you, we think the Big 12 stinks. We'll show you how they said that in their poll. And we'll have a bit of a disturbing stat for this Auburn game that might be a major red flag for Baylor fans. All that and more coming up on this episode of Locked On Baylor. But we start where we start. I'm not moving off it. The Dawson Pendergrass injury stinks. It stinks, man. Does it end Baylor's season? No. Is it, who cares? Also no. It's somewhere in the middle. You know, I started seeing some things about, Baylor's run game now decimated. It's like, no. You've still got Bryson Washington, who was one of the best backs in the Big 12 last year. And as I said on yesterday's show on the crossover, like at base level, you go from having two of the top 5 running backs in the conference to just having one. And most teams are killing to just have one, okay? And Baylor's got that. But now it's time to look at who fills in, who fills the shoes. You're not going to be able to fill this position with someone of Dawson Pendergrass's ilk. You're not going to be able to fill it with someone who has played a career like Dawson Pendergrass has already had in 2 years at Baylor. When you're replacing Dawson Pendergrass this year, it's not with experience. It's going to be with talent, but very green talent. And I noticed a couple of comments on the show on YouTube on Sunday night when we did the Dawson Pendergrass episode. A couple of people saying, well, this is why it's important to have depth. And I think our pal Chuck was the one who said this is why you don't let Richard Reese go. And I get that line of thinking, but this is depth. Dawson Pendergrass is a depth player. It's not that Baylor doesn't have depth. In fact, they have pretty good depth at the running back position. To the point where, again, you lose your backup running back, and you've got a couple of 4-stars who can slot in, 4-star recruits who are young, obviously, but can slot in and be the backup running back. This is depth, baby. We're seeing it. Part of your depth got hurt. You're replacing it with some of your other depth. Would it make us all sleep a little easier at night if you had Richard Reese and his 970 yards as a freshman who was just ready to slot in and really have this great redemption arc? Sure. But that's not how college football works these days. Richard Reese barely got a sniff of the football the last 2 years. Those guys don't stick around. Okay. It's just, you're not going to find a program where that happens. This is not Baylor. It's not Dave Aranda's fault that Dawson Pendergrass got hurt and you have to replace him with a freshman in all likelihood. So you've got the depth. Don't worry about that. Is it as good a depth as Dawson Pendergrass? No. But it's not like you're throwing in, someone who's a walk-on who didn't even deserve to be on this roster talent-wise. That's not the case. So let's look at who can fill in. Joseph Dodds, comes in as a redshirt freshman, and then you've got 2 true freshmen. Okay, Michael Turner is one of them. One of the 4-stars that they wrapped up in last year's class when they got really hot. Warren Morgan, Taz Williams. Michael Turner was probably the highest rated guy they got last year as a mid to high 4-star. And Hudson Standish, who covers a lot of Texas stuff, wrote ready to play running back thanks to his position, relative build, and athleticism. 6 feet, 200 plus pounds, with the frame space to add more mass while retaining the short area quickness and agility that separates him from other backs in Texas and around the country. 8 yards per carry, 300 plus rushes across his sophomore and junior seasons. Terrific high school player. He's coming off an injury, so there's something to be said for that. But hearing that about Michael Turner reminds me a lot of a couple of years ago, a running back coming out of Franklin, Texas, where they run a wing T mafia down there at Franklin, and they win a bunch of state championships in the 3A level. And there was a kid who I saw and said, "Man, I'm no scout, but he's got the body right now. Like he can go up against Big 12 defenders right now, much like this Michael Turner scouting report." That player from Franklin was Bryson Washington. And I'm not right about everything, Lord knows, and so do you people that listen to the podcast every day. I was right about that. He was ready to go. He comes in second season after an injury, first time playing college football, and he hit the ground running. Michael Turner could be the next one there. And he had more hype and more of a polished resume coming out of high school as a prospect than Bryson Washington did. But the other guy is Caden Knighten, and this is a really interesting one. Caden Knighten falls into all our conspiracy theories we have about the recruiting rankings in the Big 12. Committed to Baylor early in his junior year. He was a 3-star and getting a lot of buzz as maybe not one of those top guys, but kind of that next tier. And then he committed to Baylor, and the ranking never moved. We had a great last season, and the ranking never moved. Wonder why that is. If he had committed to Georgia, do you think that would have happened? If he had committed to his home state, Oklahoma Sooners, do you think that would have happened? Probably not. Probably would have been a 4-star, right? And throughout this camp, both a little bit in the spring, but mostly here in the fall, we've heard a lot about Caden Knighten. A lot. To the point where his teammates are giving him a heck of a compliment. This comes from Grayson Grunhafer of Sikkim 365. I talked about it on the show a few weeks ago. But Baylor safety Devin Bobby, who has played a lot of college football and is sometimes the one meeting you in the hole as a running back. Get to know Devin Bobby, right? If you're going against him in practice. Devin Bobby mentioned true freshman Caden Knighten as the standout freshman in the offseason. He said some of the guys on the team call him, quote, mini Skattebo. He's got the frame for it. Both he and Turner, they're big backs, man. That's half the battle. Both he and Turner and Dodds to some extent as well. They can come in and right away, they can take the hits. They can take the punishment. They can carry the football. They're the kind of guys who are like Herschel Walker, that great Herschel Walker quote when they asked him about, the load of having to carry the ball so much. And he said, actually, the ball's pretty light. I'm okay with it. Caden Knighten, Joseph Dodds, and Michael Turner all fit that bill. I think Knighten's the one you probably see the most. Anytime you're getting comparisons to Cam Skattebo and what he did last year, anytime you're getting comparisons to him, you're probably the front runner. But I probably would have said this about 2 weeks ago as well. Just from what we're hearing in fall camp, quotes like this from Devin Bobby go to show that Caden Knighten is probably ready to play. Did you want him to be your backup running back week 1 against Auburn and then week 2 against SMU? No. I'm not going to say this is ideal. Oh, everything's fine. But that's not all doom and gloom. Time to panic. Remember that thumbnail? It's not. It's not time to panic. Caden Knighten's going to be a good college football running back. And these first few weeks of the season are going to be fascinating. Not only because Baylor has a nasty front-loaded schedule, but by the time they take on Arizona State, week 4, that's where the red shirts start and end. You can play 4 games now. So in games 1 and 2, because I don't know how much you can take from a Samford game, but games 1 and 2 against Auburn and SMU are going to be the training grounds for these young running backs. You don't want to use up all 3 of their years of eligibility. All 3 of those players don't want to take up their year of eligibility. And you've already used a red shirt on Dodds. So chances are it's going to come down to Turner or Knighten unless they're both super impressive, which could happen. But Baylor is okay. the best version of this team and the best version of this juggernaut offense has Dawson Pendergrass as the second running back. But this is by no means the end of the world. Watch out for Caden Knighten. Remember that name. We'll talk about it as we build up just over 2.5 weeks here until week 1 of the regular season. But Caden Knighten is a name to remember. Same with Michael Turner. Let's see which one of these kids can fill in Dawson Pendergrass's shoes as best as possible. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Who do you think is going to take over, and what do you think this means for Baylor's offense? Let me know. Because coming up next, we're going to talk about the AP Top 25 poll. Not a lot of Baylor flavor in there. Not enough Big 12 flavor. Are these people getting exposed for their Big 12 bias? Once again, a Baylor alum pulls out a great example of why they're doing just that. That's coming up next on Locked On Baylor. But first, a message from our friends over at Game Time. Look, we've all been there, right? You're online wicked early, logging on, waiting forever for those concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Don't ask me about Oasis. No reason why. Complete non sequitur. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, the same way it does for Game Time for these sporting events that you want to go to. And you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. Okay? I know that you're tired of the endless scrolling, 4 or 5 different tabs open trying to find the best deal. You need not look any further than Game Time. And the best part about it for me, you can toggle that all-in pricing tool so that price you see is the price you're going to get. No hidden fees. So take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. That's Locked On College. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, and that, of course, is guaranteed. Back in it, Locked On Baylor. Cam Stuart bringing you along solo today. We're probably not going to have many solo shows in the next week or two. We weren't supposed to have one today, but things change. Things change. We're here to talk about the Baylor Bears and the top 25 rankings. I know some of you are sick of hearing about it by now. Baylor's not in the AP poll top 25. In fact, let me just show you so you're sure. There we go. For those of you watching on YouTube, there's the AP poll top 25, notably absent the Baylor Bears. And as I've said before, like I'm not going to throw a tantrum that Baylor's not on here. Do I think they're one of the best 25 football teams in the country based on what they did last year and who they bring back? Yes, I do. I do think they're a top 25 team because I think they're a top 4 team in the Big 12. The coaches didn't think so. The AP poll doesn't think so. The Locked On top 25 also doesn't think so. Each of them have 4 teams from the Big 12 in the top 25. And they are pretty much accurate in all 3 of those polls as to where they're going. Just outside the top 10, Arizona State. And here in the AP, you've got Kansas State at 17. You've got Iowa State at 22. And you've got the new look Texas Tech Red Raiders up there at 23. I have Baylor as probably the second best team in the conference, just on paper, going in. So yeah, I would have them in my top 25 because I think there should be some more Big 12 flavor in here. Because really interesting tweet from Shehan Jayaraja, who, as we all know, Baylor alum, covers this thing nationally, got his finger on the pulse of these rankings and these teams all over the country. And he puts out there, it's pretty interesting because there's 4 teams from the Big 12 in the top 25, but there are 3 teams, the next 3 teams on the first 3 out are all Big 12 teams, including yours, mine, our Baylor Bears. And Auburn's not that far behind either. Baylor's week 1 opponent. And see, this is what tickles me, like truly. Because you look at this, and I joked about it with Sydney a week or 2 ago when the coaches poll came out. Arizona State's at number 11. This is a team that won the Big 12 last year, that went to the college football playoff, that was one blown call away from winning the college football playoff game and getting to the semifinals of the CFP, and bring a ton of their team back and got better, I think, defensively. They didn't bring Cam Skattebo back. That's a big loss. But everywhere else at positions of need, they've got him back. They've got a top 2 quarterback in this conference. They've got probably the best wide receiver in this conference. They've got arguably the best offensive line in this conference. And they've probably got the best secondary in this conference. That gets them number 11. Because how dare we? We can't venture into the waters of putting a Big 12 team in the top 10. That would be ridiculous. Arizona State has a top 10 resume. Illinois went through most of last year with barely having a top 25 resume. They're right behind them at number 12. Miami, top 10 resume. I've yet to see it. The way Carson Beck was slinging it last year, I don't think so. But you can't put a Big 12 team in the top 10, which again rings true when you get to the end of the top 25. We like Kansas State. And again, I like Kansas State too. But it's like, Kansas State, they're always good enough, right? You won't get burned by putting them in the top 20. And boy, that Avery Johnson can run. He can't throw, but boy, golly, can he run. Put them in the top 20. We got to put a couple more in there so podcasters like me don't go on some tantrum as to why there's not more Big 12 teams in there. So let's just throw 2 in the top between 20 and 25. Well, who should we throw in there? Polster? Well, Iowa State made the Big 12 championship game last year, and Rocco Beck's a fun name. Let's put them in there. And we've got to put Tech. I mean, the number 1 transfer portal class in the country. We've got to put Tech in there. We've got to. I think Tech is barely a top 25 at best, and that's where they're at. They're at 23. But they don't have the cojones to put more Big 12 teams in there, so they just stick the next 3 right on the outside. They don't want that. They want more SEC teams in there. They want more Big 10 teams in there. They want teams that were in the college football playoff last year to justify those rankings. Boise State, stick them at 25. They lost the one prayer they had that even got them into the college football playoff last year, but let's put them at 25. Also lost a couple big-time receivers, too. SMU. We had Grayson on last week. SMU loses a ton of production, a ton, outside of Kevin Jennings. But they were a college football playoff team last year. They got to be in the top 20. South Carolina, we like the quarterback, top 15. Florida, we like the quarterback, top 15. Miami, we like the quarterback, top 10. LSU's more than that. Clemson's more than that. But, that's what they're doing here. OU. What? How did Oklahoma justify being in the top 25? You know why? We like the quarterback. Oklahoma, as my pal Cyclone Larry is putting it, is just slowly turning into Nebraska. But they're going to get a top 20 spot like the quarterback. Again, you don't like Sawyer Robertson? You don't like the top returning QBR in America? You don't like that? You don't like 28 touchdowns to 8 picks and over 3,000 yards in 10 games? You don't like that? You don't like 450 against an SEC defense? The only one he played last year, which, by the way, wasn't as good as Houston's defense. Nah, don't like it enough. Stick him outside the top 25. What are you going to do? Again, does Baylor deserve to be in the top 25? I think so. I'm not surprised that they're not here because of how the nation looks at them. But again, it's just so glaringly obvious in our face. I feel like I'm becoming one of these way out there conspiracy theorists just coming to college football instead of politics. The next 3 outside the top 25 are Big 12 teams. They don't want to put numbers next to their name. They don't want to put Auburn in there. I don't get it. If somebody knows, please let me know in the comment section below. Because coming up, we're going to talk about those Auburn Tigers, not in the top 25, and the red flag stat that is being thrown out there that might send a little bit of worry. out to Baylor fans for that week 1 matchup. Let's tell you what that stat is next on Locked On Baylor. Back with it, Locked On Baylor, of course, on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts as well. So, guys, as a reminder, like, subscribe if you're liking the content. We're the only one that's bringing you exclusively Baylor athletics content 5 days a week. Totally free, not with the university. We're really proud of that. We really are. I'm really proud of that. And I'm really proud of this community that we have going here. And I know a lot of Auburn fans have been tuning in recently too, which, look, I love you guys. Bring it on, man. This is what college football is about. Let's do it. Let's talk some trash. Let's tell me how stupid I am. Baylor fans, you can do it too. I love it. I love it. We're going to keep talking about Auburn moving up towards this week 1, which, by the way, postscript, Auburn fans, for the most part, have been great in the comment section. We've been talking about this game for a while. They've popped up in the Walker White video, which was all the way back in January. Most of them have been absolutely fantastic. They're not like some of the Big 12 fan bases that we have a real problem with. I think a lot of them are actually pretty level-headed out there at Auburn. So I appreciate them coming here, but we're going to keep talking about this week 1 matchup between the Bears and the Tigers, both outside the top 25, both had realistic shots of being just inside the top 25, but it is a great standalone SEC Big 12 matchup on a Friday night. It's the only marquee game of that night. And it's gonna be awesome. And McLean is gonna be rocking. But should we be worried about something? Should we be worried about this Baylor defense? I'm going to talk with Zach Blackerby later on this week, and we will discuss that. But here's what Zach put out on the Locked On Auburn page, and it got me thinking. Stat of the day, which he does every day. What a show he's got. Last season, Auburn's first opponent, Baylor, allowed 26.7 points per game. That would have been the second most among defenses in the SEC last season. I love a good Big 12 SEC comparison. Wouldn't last a second in the mighty SEC. But I don't think you're fooling any of us, Baylor fans. I don't think we're caught off guard by this. We knew the defense wasn't very good last year. We knew it. Did it get better as the season went on? Yes, it did. Yes, it did. You know, everyone will look back at the bowl game where they did not play well, and Garrett Nussmeier kind of had his way with them. But it did get better throughout the season. There's no doubts about that. Did they play an elite offense? I don't know. You know, TCU was a pretty good one. They gave up 34 points. So, of course, this Baylor defense is a concern. We've talked about it month in, month out for this entire offseason. What, of course, we've been pushing back on from the Auburn side of things is whether Jackson Arnold can make the most of that. He's got terrific receivers. Malcolm Simmons, is he going to play? I don't know. He's got some great receivers. He's got some great weapons. But, again, you're talking about a kid in a first game of the season with a new team, new play caller, new guys, like going up against defensive backs that don't play for his own team on the road, a true road game. Like, that does factor into this thing. And what I was surprised to see, I was not surprised to see this stat, but what I was surprised to see is how folks like ESPN, what they're thinking about this Auburn team. They got those SEC power rankings, and they've got the Tigers way down there at 12. Way down, man, behind Missouri. Behind Oklahoma, which, again, I don't know where this is coming from. I like Mateer too, but come on. I don't think Auburn's that bad. I really don't. Maybe this is me kind of pumping their tires a little bit. I don't think they're that bad. But if they're the 12th best team in the SEC, even as favorites in this game, the Tigers, I'm saying, is this a can't lose game for the Baylor Bears? Like, if you're going to be legit competing for the conference title in the Big 12, can you lose to the 12th best SEC team at home? I don't think that's doable. It's kind of what I was thinking going into the Sugar Bowl in January 2022, which is right behind me. Baylor came into that game as the Big 12 champs and a top 10 team. Ole Miss came in as the third ranked team in the SEC. They did not make the conference championship. And that was something where we were like, Baylor's got to win this game. This would be a really bad look for the Big 12 if Baylor does not win this game. Of course they did. Shout out. Dave Aranda was still the coach back then. So can you lose to Auburn if they're the 12th best team or the 10th best team or the 8th best team even in the SEC? That might be a pretty bad look. Might not be very good for our conference and for our head coach. But I do think Baylor's defense has improved. I do think you got better in the secondary. Devin Turner, that's a huge loss. That's the biggest loss injury-wise that Baylor's had this year. And if he was suited up and playing this game in this season, I would feel a lot better. I like Devin Bobby a lot at the safety position, but he needs some help. You bring in Calvin Simpson-Hunt. You hopefully get a better LeVar Thornton. You hopefully get a better Caden Jenkins, a better Carl Williams, who was terrific, I think, at points last year. But I think the biggest addition that you made to this defensive side of the ball is Paul Gonzalez. We saw how much a position coach / coordinator could make a huge difference last year with someone like Keenan Hall, not just recruiting, but in that running backs room where he is the positional coach with, of course, Jake Spavital coming in as the offensive coordinator. With Paul Gonzalez, you've got both of those things. He's the passing game coordinator, big deal, and the defensive backs coach. And he was Gary's right-hand man at TCU for a long time. He was at TCU with some pretty good teams, with some really good defensive backs, guys who made the NFL. It's not crazy to think that he could turn it around in a year the way Mason Miller turned around Baylor's offensive line in year one last year. So I think they got some good players. I think they got a better coach. But this is why we strap up the helmets and play. Will Baylor's defense be better than what would have been the second worst in the SEC last year? Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Let me know what you think about this Baylor team, and especially week one. Are you taking the Bears or are you scared of the mighty SEC? Let me know what your decision is and why in the comment section below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Again, the only place that's bringing it to you free, nothing but Baylor athletics content 5 days a week. That's not coming directly from the university and its many partners. Thank you guys so much for making it your first listen today and every day. We will see you on the next episode of your favorite show, which is, of course, Locked On Baylor.